Released on October 1999, WWF WrestleMania 2000 was created by the AKI Corporation exclusively for the Nintendo 64. WrestleMania 2000 was the first WWF game released by THQ. The wrestling company ended its long relationship with Acclaim Entertainment after witnessing the video game success of its competitor, the WCW, which is a crazy thing to write. It implies that the WWF didn't see how Attitude played and looked. They really didn't need to see the success of other wrestling games to see how poor their current titles were doing. Now when taking a look at this game, it's really clear to see where this title originated. The previously released NWO WCW series and the AKI Engine makes an incredible comeback. But what's new? What's been added and tweaked from the previous version of this title? Well, to name a few things, we have the cage match, triple threat matches, and the ability to have first blood matches. Some surprisingly missing things in the previous title's release. We have the beloved pay-per-view and King of the Ring modes, a must-have for any wrestling game from around this time, previously being seen in Attitude, released a few months earlier. We have the creative belt making its debut, although it's incredibly slimlined and basic, and this may have actually been a first in any mainline professional wrestling series. The entrances also become a bit of a focus. They've improved and grander compared to Revenge. This title also had Titantrons and much better music, as Revenge used MIDI style files instead of actual music files. It was down to the limitations of the N64 cartridge system, but nonetheless. There's new walking animations, double team moves were added entirely, and obviously there's whole new moves, animations, taunts, and even the ability to hang an opponent in the Tree of Woe in the corner. Though that being said, they removed the quick match feature that was present in Revenge. They added the season mode, which was a huge change as well. No longer having a singular belt story being followed throughout, it instead allowed you to play more freeform and go up and down said rankings, winning each title you desire, a feature that was immediately cut from No Mercy that followed, though it is present in the first SmackDown game. They also removed the strike combo system, and for whatever reason in the UK and US versions, there isn't actually the blood I just mentioned. There's still the satisfying sound and the person will fall to the ground grasping at their head, but there is no actual blood there, unless you play the Japanese version. How strange. The year is 1999, and some would argue that WWF have some of the best talents in existence. So let's start there and talk about the roster that is present in this one. WrestleMania has 59 wrestlers to choose from, an incredible number, up from the 42 listed previously in WWF's last affair, Attitude, including the classics like Rock, Taker, Austin, Kane, Triple H and Chaz. There's new people making their WWF debuts, like The Giant, the Big Show, Chris Jericho, Hardcore Holly, Briscoe and Patterson, Deborah and the Hardy Boys, who are finally making their debut despite motion capturing multiple games for the WWF by this point. There's also the ones you'd expect, like DX out in full force, the McMahons as playable characters, yes, all three of them, the Blue Meanie, Test, Viscera, Scott Taylor and even a Crash Test dummy. There's Cactus Jack, who's unlocked after defeating the WWF Hardcore Champion, Dude Love, who's unlocked after capturing the King of the Ring crown, and the WWF title at SummerSlam. Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross, who are unlocked at WrestleMania. There's Paul Bearer, and also Stephanie McMahon, and she's unlocked by playing as her former fiancé, Test. The intricate create a wrestler and edit modes give players the chance to design new characters with specific appearances and mannerisms, and editing existing styles to fit their own personal taste. It's even possible to make people like certain WCW stars in this mode due to their taunts being able to be chosen. The roster is also notable due to its inclusion of Droz, the Headbangers and Jeff Jarrett, the only time that these certain people were available in a WWF THQ title. So who's majorly missing? Well, this title released in October of 99, so let's say July-August is the cutoff point for this roster. Well, there's no Mark Mero for Nucky, Too Cold Scorpio, Steve Williams, Steven Regal, there's no Taka Michinoku, or Luna Vachon, or Sable, that's weird. There's no Road Warriors, no Gilbert, Bull Buchanan, and none of the Mean Street Posse. And no Sergeant Slaughter. How strange. Out of those I mentioned, Taka is included in WWF Attitude along with Slaughter. The funny thing about the mainstream posse, they're even snubbed until the next calendar year entirely, missing out on WWF SmackDown's first release and only making their debut in the follow-up, SmackDown 2. The biggest weakness, honestly, is the roster selection though. The big hitters are present, but having guys like Midian, Viscera, Albert and Sean Stasiak filling up roster slots is considerably less fun than playing like somebody like a Shawn Michaels. Though that should go without saying. Of course, this is a personal opinion. Maybe people will go wild for Meat versus The Godfather. There's a full and complete Create Wrestler mode this time around, meaning it's possible to bring to life several new stars, or just create the old ones. This is the kind of mode that people would use back in the day to create stars of TNA, Ring of Honor, and whoever else would come to mind due to how small these communities are, and the incredible large overlap between the indie wrestling fans and people who would spend time, like myself, emulating WWF games on a Nintendo 64. There's a decent amount of clothing options available, with people like the Road Warriors being actually fairly easy to recreate, though this title really excels when it comes to movesets. Previously in WWF Warzone, you could only give a wrestler a set moveset, but this time around it's completely possible to go into each wrestler's moveset entirely and change each move to your heart's content. The moves range from simple things like arm drags and body slams, all the way up to triple powerbombs and Death Valley drivers from the top rope. The main menu presents us with Exhibition, King of the Ring, Road to WrestleMania, Pay-Per-View, Royal Rumble and a few other customization options. Now behind the customization options, these include singles, tags, freeway matches and cage matches, and that's about it for match types. Now it is possible to play Last Man Standing, Fatal 4-Ways, First Bloods, Hardcore and Submission matches by changing the rules of a specific match to fit what match you actually wanted to play. Honestly, this menu is super bare bones. There is a rather wide opinion on this title that it's a beta test for No Mercy, which released the following year, and I really do have to agree with this analogy, especially when it comes to the match types. Though this title, WrestleMania, has the big show, so, you know, I guess you have to kind of choose what you really want to do. Create a pay-per-view mode makes a return in WrestleMania 2000, this time around actually having quite a bit of effort put into it. Upon choosing a name for your event and the matches, up to 15 are available per show, you have an excellent looking pyro display to welcome you to your show and have the matches play out in front of you, whether it be for the titles you created or not. Let's talk about the Create a Belt mode real quick. It's basically just you type in your own name for a belt and then you pick a premium title out of the 5 or 6 that are available. That's it, that's Create a Belt mode. The Road to WrestleMania mode puts you in the role of a wrestler making their way from rookie to working your way up the ladder, earning opportunities to gain various WWF titles, playing in tournaments and being challenged by various wrestlers. Unfortunately for me, the only way to win the Road to WrestleMania mode is to capture all 4 of the main singles titles before entering WrestleMania, where you are forced to defend all 4 belts on one show. Sounds rough if you ask me. Well, that's what I thought when I started writing this script. See, it turns out that if you lose every single match, then win the Rumble itself, that's pretty much the only way to actually get a good ending in WrestleMania 2000. And yes, this game has endings for some reason. If you happen to be undefeated heading into the endgame, winning every single match but losing the Rumble, you will still receive the "too bad, please try again" ending. This is laughable. Why can't I stay in the mid-card? Why can't I just beat up Blue Meanie on Heat for a year over the hardcore title? To quote the Eye of Evil over on the GameSpot forums, it may sound like I'm blowing it out of proportion, but this is just not right at all. Not only is Road to WrestleMania one of the most frustrating story modes in any wrestling game, your run will be worth jack if you don't win the Royal Rumble. If I was my core that got screwed out of the title despite his 100% win percentage, I think I'd be having a field day with the WWF management. Now see, there are feuds at different parts, where wrestlers would come out and call out your wrestler to the ring, leading to wrestlers interfering in your later on matches, but this season continues whether you win or lose, which is great and would be the backbone of a decent season mode, but unfortunately the ending of said mode is what really lets it down. Now, if you do end up winning the championship before you're supposed to at WrestleMania, Vince McMahon would appear and strip you of said title no matter what. Literally, the only way to a main event Mania is to win the Royal Rumble and go after the title in the main event. You can lose every other match that's available on the card. Now, to begin with, we load up Road to WrestleMania mode, choose our selected character, and let's face it, it's going to be Jericho or the Big Show, and we get a look at our current champions before we start. By default, it's all Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Hardy Boys, Jeff Jarrett, Mideon and Al Snow as the current reigning champions. Well, the Hardys won the tag titles in real life on June 29th. Mideon was handed the European title on June 21st, so that tracks, with Jarrett winning the IC title and basically holding it throughout the year after Owen's passing. We can basically say that this title's champions from a couple of weeks around June, early July of '99, though this career, like most, begins immediately after WrestleMania, setting you on a path of 50 or so weeks of matches until the next one rolls around. It's probably actually more than that considering there's Raw and Sunday Night Heat shows, but yeah. For my first match I had a triple threat against Brian Christopher and Chaz, which went an astounding 13 minutes. To follow that up on the card that was presented, Matt and Jeff wrestled to an 11-minute countout. Meat and the Blue Meanie defeated Gangrel and Edge in a 38-minute match, again by a countout, before I decided to actually watch a title match between Viscera and Al Snow. To follow that up was a Jeff Jarrett Farouk 17-minute match, a 47-minute triple threat match where The Undertaker defeated Test and Kane, and a 53-minute tag team main event between Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Triple H with Mr. Ass. Just total lunacy. There's an excellent little animation that plays at the start of each show letting pyro loose in the arena and really giving us a feel for what the show is that's about to start. I truly believe that in late '99 this absolutely would have been my jam and I would have been totally hooked on this, but it ain't '99 anymore, guys. Honestly, just knowing that I was about to spend around 2 hours constantly wrestling Chaz and Scott Taylor, Brian Christopher and others stupidly low on the card just doesn't really seem that appealing. Here we have the true meat and potatoes of any AKI title, the incredible AKI style gameplay that we've come to grow and love. I do find this title to be a bit bare bones compared to what we came previously, but if we compare it against WCW World Tour, say, that would probably be a better point of contention, seeing as that would be the first title in that series for WCW and this would be the first for the WWF. Honestly, if all things considered, it's just another AKI wrestling title. It doesn't truly innovate or add anything new to the gameplay besides the things I mentioned in the intro. Though there is the ability to do the Doomsday device, which is always a massive pop from me. The tag team moves are definitely cool and add a whole other dimension to the newly implemented triple threats and tag team matches. I do wish there was a little more fluidity in their execution. Going into a grapple and having your tag team partner or opponent to help out would have been excellent instead of just timing your grapple stick to coincide with somebody you'd like to score a move on. Not complaining, just would have been nice. They've changed the spirit meter to say Attitude, which fits nicely with the Attitude Era timeline of the game. There's now full entrances for every single wrestler, with every person on the roster, apart from tag teams who share themes, having their own unique entrance music. Though due to the game being on cartridge, it obviously just loops and is of rather poor quality. There are wrestlers who make their entrances together, though they need to be paired together as a stable beforehand. I do also enjoy that wrestlers post for moves that are coming towards them, sending an opponent off the ropes and then waiting in place to catch them as they come at you always looks really impressive to me, as it's something missing from every wrestling game outside of the AKI titles. Now hardcore matches are pretty fun, as they always tend to be, with some giant sized weapons up for grabs, and cage matches do give a different take on the concept that was completely fresh at the time, despite the cage being absolutely gigantic. I honestly thought I'd have more to say about WrestleMania, but it's greatly lacking for me as a long-time AKI player at this point. I spent around 5 hours with WCW NWO Revenge, around a couple hours with World Tour, and between those two titles and this one, well, maybe about 3 to 4 hours, but I really just don't need to play more than that to experience what this game has to truly offer. This game is actually something that I did end up playing for a short while in 2001. I went through this strange period of time where I started asking for a Nintendo 64 again and had grown totally bored of playing the SmackDown series, especially after a full year of grinding the season mode to unlock Michael Cole, and was actually given an N64 by my sister's now ex-boyfriend. I played this title on and off for around a month, just enjoying something different before actually being bought a PS2 for Christmas that year and being, well, happy at the time with Just Bring It. But yeah, it's enough for me to say that I have played this one before, and I've played No Mercy a couple times at friends' houses too, but otherwise I was a PlayStation kid who just longed for a new experience. With all that being said, WrestleMania 2000 is a good game if viewed through the eyes of 1999 style nostalgic goggles. I can guarantee it would last longer than WCW NWO Revenge, though that's definitely a better title out of the two due to its more in-depth roster and super fun, unrepetitive career mode that's on offer. WCW NWO Revenge may be superior to WCW vs NWO World Tour, but the former has plenty of novelties making it special. One example is the crazy roster, not just WCW guys like Flair and Regal who weren't in the sequel, but also the Japanese stars who don't even have their real names but are obviously thinly veiled representations of real people. WrestleMania 2000 is the forgotten child of the AKI titles. World Tour has the novelty of being the first truly great 3D wrestling title, and Revenge is the peak of WCW gaming, and No Mercy is the refinement of everything N64 games did at the time. Thus, WrestleMania 2000 feels like the "oh yeah, that one" of the series. A fine game, but just overshadowed by the titles around the time. And obviously the timing also does hurt it a bit. It's a fine representation of the Russo Attitude Era, but the major injection into the mid-card via Angle and the Radicals that occurred right after this has made the roster seem even worse. I do really think I'd enjoy playing it if I had this in 1999, grinding season mode for hours on end, deep into the night, and honestly, I think that's what this series is really about. I try my best not to compare titles to what comes after only before, though this time around WrestleMania is deeply buried in the shadow of its bigger brother looming on the horizon.